The Marino Show.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Marino Show. I'm your host, David Marino, and today I'm speaking with Anthony Sant'Anselmo with Mondo Video. He built his own video store in his basement. And when I say video store, this is an elaborate video store. This isn't any kid stuff here. So, Anthony, thank you so much for being with me today. I'm excited to talk to you.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
So I can see that you're sitting in the store that you built. I ran across this on social media, and my show, I usually focus on horror. I interview people about movies. You obviously are a movie expert in every sort of genre, judging by the videos that I've seen and what you've created there. But first of all, just tell me, what was the inspiration behind doing this?
How much time do you have?
What really got you, sparked up about putting this in your home?
So we moved from LA to Atlanta, and we've never had a basement. So I knew having a basement was going to be a cool idea to build something that inspires me. The idea was we'd split the house in terms of my wife can decorate it however she wants and go in any direction up there as long as I have down here. And she's like, that's a fantastic idea. I'm like, that's a fantastic idea. So nonetheless, I knew I wanted a production office because I'm a writer and filmmaker. I actually do animation for a day job, but I wanted a home gym and a home theater, but I didn't know what to do with this area. It was kind of a hodgepodge catch-all for all my weird collectibles. I collect a lot of screen-used puppets and replicas from horror films and whatnot. So it was kind of a catch-all. And initially I wanted to do a replica of the Haunted Mansion. Not that I'm a massive Disney fan. I mean, I love Disney, but not, it would just be more decor than functionality. So I ended up getting the idea for the video store, which is literally kind of just my core as a human being, because, when you're a kid, some kids are into the cars or sports or whatever. I was always into movies. As young as I can remember, when I was 5, I knew I wanted to make movies. So nothing's changed. Once I had the idea, I think that was summer of 2018, and I'm literally still working on it January of 2024. So it's like a never ending, always something to add. But initially I just wanted this room, and it was so difficult just to get this done. But then it started snaking into the other rooms. And then, you'll see in the video.
Yeah. And
it was a problem.
Of that, I'm going to bring that up right now, and I want you to sort of narrate through this, what we're seeing, because it's amazing what you've accomplished here. So I'm going to go ahead and play it. So go ahead and talk us through this.
So this is our front kind of foyer, if you want to call it, just our, front living room space. And I knew I wanted to start the project with a secret door. So this is one of the hardest pieces to find. I could bore you with the details on how that was put together, but it took days. But nonetheless, I wanted to start the experience, dare I say, from opening the door. And I wanted you to feel like you were descending into some kind of back alley, city video store, seedy city video store, complete with an adults only section, maybe a little dangerous feeling. Whether I pulled that off or not, I don't know. Some people say it's too clean. Some people say it's perfect. So it's really there's really no wrong answer. I look at it as a kind of a piece of art. At least that was my attempt. And I wanted to build a set that I can, shoot in, whether it's film or podcasts, social media, nostalgic accounts. I just wanted to kind of, put every detail I can into it. So it felt authentic, but at the same time, it's my dream video store. There's a few TVs in there that are flat screens that, Doc Brown brought back from the future. This is kind of how I joke about it. But yeah, every room just kind of became its own theme. Yeah, this is an older video. There's actually a martial arts section there and another section there. It's skate or die section. But yeah, it really just kind of kept going. And I knew that whatever project I started, I wanted to finish. So that was the, tug at my, kind of give me the push, a self push. And I wanted my kids to have a cool space in which to hang out and kind of know what video stores are. Cause, they're not really around like they used to.
Yeah, and I'm seeing all these like little details here with like gremlins and the stand-up movie posters, everything you would see in a video store. You have like some figurines and everything, and your own movie theater, huh?
Yeah, yeah. So that was the idea. I wanted to kind of snake the connective tissue of the video store into the home theater. But back in that other room before the theater was like the kids section. We call it Mondo Kiddio. But I kept going with the project and kept going and kept going, and then the kitchen was created. And this is more just like this is like a museum experience. You got the comfort food section, anything that's food related films, culinary horror with zombies, cannibals, carnivore diet, vampires, the liquid diet. It was really just kind of like just became kind of a scavenger hunt. Now, Lunch Meat is actually a VHS brand. They have a magazine. It's kind of like a VHS lifestyle. I actually contribute writing for them every now and again. So, yeah.
Wow, that was awesome. And I'll play, like you said, you have a more current one. I know you sent me one, but I'll
Oh,
even
it's all
add
good.
here. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's very elaborate. You said it took about 3 years to actually complete this, and you're still working on it. When you think of video stores back to your childhood, what kind of memories come to play for you? Because it feels very much by looking at this that you took some of your own experiences as a kid and really replicated that. I mean, it's amazing. I
Oh, thank you.
absolutely love it.
No, thank you. I appreciate that. I, when we had, like I said, when we got the basement, it was a blank slate. And so when I had that video store idea, I wanted to bring a couple key elements that I recall from our town's video store, like the saloon doors on the adult section. That was what our video store had. Some other video stores have beads. We had the saloon doors. So the one we had was white. So I wanted to, put a little splash of color on it. But yeah, in terms of details, like, well, getting back, we actually had, like I said, that video store called the Movie Mart. And my memories are my friends and I would ride our bikes, like many other kids from the 80s, ride our bikes to the video store. And I always gravitated towards the horror section. The cover art was always captivating to me. And I had a pretty strict mom growing up, so she kind of forbid me to see a few films that I wanted to see in real time, like Gremlins. I wasn't allowed to see in the theater. I was 7 at the time. I caught that a couple years later. Like I was a little off kilter in terms of catching the current releases. But every time we walked into the movie mart, she'd always try to pull me away from the horror section. I'm like, that just makes me want to go there even more. And I understand she didn't want me to see certain graphic images, but nonetheless, it was a great video store, super mom and pop. Um, and I just have really great memories. And I was saddened. I didn't really understand the byproduct of Blockbuster when they came in as to why, they closed. It just became a Domino's pizza. I'm like, oh, okay, you're gone, I guess. Bummer. And then I started realizing it's an epidemic of video stores closing as a result.
So all the films in that store, those are all of your own collection, right? I mean, are these like from a kid? I mean, you have VHS. I'm assuming you have DVDs. I saw laser discs. So it runs the gamut, right? Every sort of format.
It does. In the video store, in every room except for the home theater, it's all VHS. And in the theater, we have like, DVDs, Blu-rays, and some 4Ks and whatever. And we stream, of course. But yeah, the video store is a total throwback. It's all VHS and some Laserdisc, some Beta, some CEDs. So yeah, I just wanted to be as authentic as I could, but I wanted to build it like an art installation. So I wanted to treat it as respectful as I can. I didn't want to cut corners, and plus part of this was done during the pandemic, and that coupled with moving to a place where you don't know anybody, you're not really going to go out very often. So I had a lot of free time at night.
And those movies, were those all yours? I mean, over the years that you've collected, or how did that come?
No, I actually probably had about 50 to 100 from my childhood that I hung on to. But once I got the idea, I started really searching for tapes, and I wanted it to be a kind of thing where it was movies I loved or movies I hadn't seen. I didn't just want, 70 copies of Titanic, or you know what I mean? Like, I didn't want filler. I wanted it to have a purpose. Um, yeah. So, and if I have like a double, I'll give it to a friend, or if it's a movie I don't like, I'll sell it off or pass it off to a buddy, whatever. So, yeah.
Well, I have to ask you, you mentioned that you love horror. As you can see, I do behind me
Oh, yeah.
there. When you talk about some of the things that you've collected, you mentioned like some horror kind of memorabilia. What types of things do you have that are horror related?
So I've got what do I have? I've got a recasting of the Mushling Galwin from Troll.
Oh,
And
wow.
that's a super long story, so I'll spare you, but it was off the original that I almost got. I'll save that for another time. What else do I have? I've got a recasted Crypt Keeper. I've got a screen used Meet the Feeble from Meet the Feebles, Peter Jackson film. What else? What else? Stunt Ghoulie from Ghoulies. Pretty bad shape, but pretty stoked to have that one. Things like that.
What is your favorite, if you can pick one out of the horror related films? What is your favorite horror film? You mentioned Gremlins, but are there any others that stick out? I tend to gravitate towards the slasher flicks from the 80s. That's what I grew up on. But for you, what specifically stands out when you think back to that time of watching these films?
I mean, there's, many films, but my all-time favorite film is Dawn of the Dead, 1978. So, like, hands down.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It used to be 2001. And then I saw Dawn of the Dead. I'm like, sorry. Yeah. Move over.
So you created this. What is do people come and see it? I mean, is it ever, that's kind of it's in your house, so I wouldn't imagine you're just going to open it up to everyone. But have you ever done that where you've actually opened that space up for people to see? Because like you said, it really is like a museum. And for those of us like myself that miss the physical media, we're in a world of streaming now, which there's nothing wrong with that. But I love physical media. I buy vinyl. I still buy DVDs. I have VHS films. Have people asked if they can come tour it just by seeing your channel?
Yeah, and it's super cool that they want to. But at the end of the day, it isn't a house. And I didn't really think of the byproduct of putting this online. Like when I say it took me 3.5 years to complete it, that was 3.5 years to at least get the walkthrough video done enough for Lunch Meat, because Lunch Meat was nice enough to put it out. But nonetheless, yes, I have given some tours. Usually when I vet somebody a little bit more, because somebody will give me like a shout out on Instagram, like, hey, and if they seem fairly normal, we're all kind of not normal, which is great, but you know what I mean? If they seem fun and like, yeah, maybe I'll make a allowance and they'll come over and check it out and we'll hang out for a little bit. I've actually met some really cool people that way. By and large, it's not open for public. It's really just kind of my way of sharing it is like through various channels, like Instagram. I have a video store account, and Facebook and Twitter X or whatever they want to call it. YouTube. So,
in terms of your video store, is that a place where people can literally go and buy some of the films that you have, or what is that? Can you talk about that a little more?
Yeah, it is just like kind of a museum. It's a super fun place to hang out, which is the main intention is just, like I said earlier, like I'm a writer, and so I wanted something that inspires me. So to be around movies all day long or whatever is really kind of what I wanted to do. And like I said, the byproduct of that is my kids get to see what a video store is, and they don't even, it's kind of lost on them right now because they think every basement, they're so young, they think every basement is just like this, like, oh yeah. So they'll soon realize, oh no, daddy's just weird. So
how big is the space? Because it looks pretty spacious in that video. Around every corner there's another room. It seems very large.
Yeah, we were incredibly thrilled and almost like it was daunting when we first saw the house. Like, geez, it's like so much space. Which that's how the houses were built initially out here, um, which is so foreign to us coming from LA. Which is like I said, that's where we're from. But the space is about 2,500 square feet. So yeah.
Tell me what you do with your filmmaking. You said, your regular job is animation, your
Mhm.
day-to-day job, but in terms of filmmaking, what kind of films are you interested in making, or what have you made, and where can people see those if they are available anywhere online?
So I started making like little cannibal horror shorts that really turned out to be comedies when I was a kid, and I probably made like 150 to 200 these zombie films, and I always wanted to progress in that. Um, but then I linked up with South Park and I started doing animation for them, and I've been with them for 20 years, and that kind of took me off on a different detour. But I've been writing scripts on the side probably since I was 22, like professionally without getting paid. I actually got hired to write the remake for Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, so that was pretty sweet, and it got approved. Then COVID happened, and then the ball got picked back up. So we're going to see what's happening, but nonetheless, that was exciting. In terms of films, I've not made a feature yet. It's something it's on my bucket list, and when I say bucket list, I mean I'd like to make minimum at least 10 because I feel like I've got 20 years to make up for. You know what I mean? Like most people bang out their first feature in their 20s, and I got pretty close. There was a movie called Mondo Holocausto that I wrote, and it was a throwback to the Italian '70s films, the cannibal films, which always use the word Holocaust, in their titles. But this one was going to be dubbed, and this was probably in 2007, and it got pretty close. I mean, we had a pretty cool cast. Um, but my friend and I, my DP buddy and I, we always talk like, dude, in Georgia, it's so like lush. We could shoot a jungle picture out here, no problem. There's like Amazonian looking rivers everywhere. We're like, what are we waiting for? So that might be next on the docket. But I keep thinking like I want to shoot a feature now in this space.
So you said that you do animation. Is it for South Park?
Mm-hmm.
Like, wow.
Cartman, yeah, South Park. 20
Wow,
years now, which is crazy. Yeah.
that's crazy. I was so into like the video store. I just even looked at your personal Instagram, and yeah, that it says that on there. That's awesome that you've been able to do that. How did you get into animation?
So I used to make stop motion animation, horror animation, as well as live action. And my brother-in-law, who he got into the industry pretty early. Like I remember jobs when I was 15 and he was 23. We were just like PAs on like Joe Weider's Flexmaster infomercial starring David Naughton of American Werewolf in London.
He
I
was
have
also
never.
in Dr. Pepper
Oh
commercials.
yeah, he was the original Pepper guy, Mr. Pepper guy, or whatever, Dr. Pepper. But yeah, so Frank knew that I wanted to get in, so he kind of took me under his wing, and he started directing for it was like the QVC JCPenney Shopping Network. It was like QVC. Anyway, so he started moving his way up, and he actually got this one gig that Comedy Central never thought was going to last. So like, hey, can you just do this for us real quick? It's called South Park. I mean, the short's pretty okay. It's pretty funny, but we just don't think it's going to connect. He's like, sure. And I think he was like production coordinator. I mean, 20 years later, here we are, 20 plus years later. But so he got me in. So I do lip sync animation, but once he got in and he saw that it wasn't going anywhere, I'm like, dude, you got to get me in on the show. And he already knew my background in terms of like my interests and how I'd spend my time like stop motion animation or just out there with a camcorder and my friends, knuckleheaded friends, just on the front lawn eating bologna off each other's arm and squirting ketchup everywhere, whatever. So he got me in, and I just made sure I didn't mess up, and I learned how to do like the South Park animated style because there's a certain style that has to be construction paper look. So yeah, it took me a half a year to learn to kind of like feel confident enough, and then now it's like second nature because I've done it for so long. But yeah, so he got my foot in the door, and I just made sure I didn't squander the opportunity and learned it.
Well, and South Park is, I mean, it's a fabric of pop culture. It's iconic. Everybody knows South Park. Did you envision it becoming what it has become today?
I mean, I think I got into the show in season 7, and that was 2003, October of 2003. So I had already seen like, oh wow, there's some legs to this show, and I loved it anyway. It was just kind of my sensibility and my humor, whatever. And Trey and Matt, when they're interviewed, like, hey, did you know it was going to be this long? They're like, oh yeah, for sure, of course we did, but nobody really knew. And of course they're joking, but yeah, I didn't know it was going to last this long, and that's why I'm again, I could bore you with the details as to the reasoning why I did this, but like I can't believe I've been there for 20 years, as I said. And when I started this project, it was 5 years ago. So 15 years into South Park, and I had this basement. I'm like, okay, I'm going to build a set that I could shoot stuff. Nobody can tell me I can't because it's mine. Like, I don't have to ask permission. South Park's not going to last forever. And I've always had this aspiration inside me. I have to follow that. Kind of like Moana going into the ocean. Like, it's like that calling. So, yeah.
What would you say, in your opinion, is one of the most unique aspects of the video store? Whether that's a prop or something else, what would you say, or something that you just love that you have, that you own as part of the store?
You know, it's hard to. I mean, it's kind of easy. Oh, the saloon doors, but I don't know. I've been in it so long that it's cool for me to see it through other people's eyes because I kind of experience it for the first time. But I guess the secret doors are cool for sure. I mean, who doesn't like secret doors? But I guess coming down the stairs, which are yeah that way. I can't believe I actually did this correctly. Usually, since I'm inverted, I'm like, ah! But
Like
I
a
finally
weather
did it.
person.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I finally did it correctly. So when I come down the stairs and see it, it's I don't think about it often, but it's definitely very rewarding to see it visually finished. Like I can be like, oh, that's not done over there, but nobody would see it. Um, and I'm not throwing my dad under the bus when I say this, but I grew up in a house where he would start projects and not finish them. He was a businessman, so he was always about the business, and he had his own business, so he was quite busy. But so I never wanted to. I needed to finish it for myself. So yeah,
You mentioned that your kids enjoy this space. I mean, it has to be awesome for them because obviously the younger generation now, like I mentioned, physical media isn't a thing anymore. There are no video stores. What do they say to you? I mean, being young, as you mentioned, are they kind of enamored by it, or just
they
kind
are.
of, what is that? What is that?
Yeah, well, no, it's cool because they know how to like take off the tape without it slipping out. So it's like they've got the squeeze down now, which is cool. Um, but they'll come down and be like, they'll watch Toy Story upstairs, come down here and be like, oh, Toy Story, let's watch Toy Story. They know that it's a physical tape that you have to put it in the VCR. And my middle child loves to, you know, put the tape in the VCR, and I'm like, you got to flip it around. So now he's got it down. Um, but they just think it's cool, and it's just, I think for a kid, it's probably visually striking. I mean, it is in general, which is the intention, I think, in terms of like deep colors, and obviously it's stark black, but with red pops, and so black and white checkered floors. So I think for them, it's kind of like a circus, and especially their area, I wanted to make it brighter and not black for Mondo Kiddio. So more kind of 80s aesthetics, Memphis style, if you will. Yeah, so they get a kick out of it.
Is there anything else that you want to do to the space? You mentioned that you're still kind of thinking and working on some things. What's next, or what haven't you done that you want to do to it?
The one thing that I've said, and at this point, a few videos, and if you look at the date, it's like, oh, that video is 3 years old, bro. Um, I want to get little placards that I could put under each, just attached to each shelf. And one would be like in the horror section, it'd be like the don't section. Here's all the movies that start with don't. Or Stephen King section, or in the thrillers, Yuppie in Peril section. I want to have little like where somebody who, whether they know me or not, they come down here and they are guided. Their eyes tell them exactly what they're looking at. Otherwise, it's kind of visually too much. It's like, well, it's most of it's alphabetized, but I think if it's more of a guided tour, then it's more rewarding. Plus, it helps me pick out a movie when I'm in a certain mood. Like, oh yeah, I'm in a aquatic horror mood. I don't know. So
So do you actually spend a lot of time in this area of your house?
not as much as people think. People are like, oh man, you must be always down there. I'm like, I wish. But like I said, I have 3 little kids, and when we're in season, I actually work in my office in the next room. When we're in season, I work about 80 hours a week. So that plus 3 little kids and the whole 9 yards, I get little less time down here. So thank you for having me on the podcast. I actually get to kick it in here. So I appreciate that. Yeah, really.
Speaking of, you're going to be starting a podcast, right?
Yes. I think it's high time. A friend of mine, Danny McDermott, he started the Danny McDermott Show. He's a comic from New York. And he started his podcast like 2 years ago. And then he had me on at the end doing a little segment called Ask Anthony. And it was just like, what are you watching this week? And I'd break out some genre of film and kind of go over it and nerd out. And that was fun. And he was just getting his podcast going. So he didn't have a lot of followers, which was good for me because I was kind of workshopping it. But nonetheless, we're kicking ours off next month. And it's called Mondo Beyond is the idea. And yeah, it's just about, I mean, YouTube needs another movie podcast. Let's be real, right?
Well, but the difference is you actually have your own video store that you've built. So that's a whole different spin. You can literally go and just pick a film off your shelf and talk about it.
True.
That's a
True.
very different thing.
But it's at the end of the day, it's all about entertainment and, you know, likability, and am I getting cool information from this individual? Because I've seen great sets. You know, I'm not trying to put myself down. I understand what one is up against when they do a podcast. You know, you could have the worst set in the background, but if you are fun and engaging and you have some kind of energy, that comes through the screen. So set's cool. It's a good start, but you know, wish us luck.
I think it's going to be great. Where can people find your channels if they want to follow you?
So Instagram is Mondo_video, and YouTube is Mondo Video Store. Facebook is Mondo Video Store as well. TikTok is Mondo Video, just one word. And Twitter X is Mondo Video, one word.